Back in the day when the music industry was flush with money, aspiring musicians were far more likely to get their chance at signing a record deal and hitting the big time. As a result, the music industry seemed like a much busier place, and the 90s was a gold mine of great songs from artists who, for whatever reason, were never able to repeat their success. I've decided to do a top 5 for every year of the first half of the 90s. I've based it on UK charts year-end sales, as I couldn't find any international figures, although most of the songs in this video have also been one-hit wonders around the world. And I left out some novelty songs as it was kind of obvious that they were one-hit wonders. That's the boring bit out of the way, let's get into it. Alannah Myles was a Canadian singer who won a Best Female Rock Vocal Grammy for this song. In 1990 it went to #1 all over the world, but she didn't seem to be able to repeat the success. It has over the years become a karaoke classic, if that's any consolation. She left her record label Atlantic in the mid-90s and signed to a small independent label instead. In recent years she seemed to still be recording. Maria McKee was a Californian singer who started in an Americana band called Lone Justice. The band split in 1987 and she went solo. In fairness to Maria, she did have another big hit in 1985 with Good Heart, a song she wrote but gave to Irish singer Fergal Sharkey. Show Me Heaven was the theme song from the Tom Cruise movie Days of Thunder, and it got to #1 all over the world, but strangely wasn't a big hit in her home country. Maria never really had another hit song after this, but she seems to still be recording and has got involved in the movie business. Using the opening riff of Rick James' Super Freak, You Can't Touch This was a huge hit all over the world, and its parent album Please Hammer Don't Hurt Them spent 21 weeks at the top of the American charts, and still remains to this day the genre's biggest selling album. But the hits soon dried up and MC Hammer declared bankruptcy in 1996 with over $13 million in debt. He later became an ordained preacher. He seems to be doing a lot of reality TV these days, and he pops up all over the place. Vanilla Ice, real name Robert Van Winkle, brought hip-hop to the mainstream when he sampled the bass line of Queen and David Bowie's classic Under Pressure and wrote a rap over it. The track went to #1 all over the world, including America, where Ice Ice Baby became the first ever hip-hop song to top the charts. Huge success followed, including a #1 album, a lead role in a movie, and even a doll. But success was fleeting, and by the time he released his second album in '94, the album didn't even chart, and his record label had gone bankrupt. Sinead continues to be hugely famous to this day, but either side of Nothing Compares to You, she never really had another hit. The song was of course a Prince cover, and Sinead's haunting version went stratospheric, hitting the top spot in both the UK and the US. But I highly doubt Sinead ever wanted to be a commercial artist anyway. Other honourable mentions from 1990 include Dirty Cash by Adventures of Stevie V, D-Light's Groove Is in the Heart, Blue Pearl's Naked in the Rain, and London Beat's I've Been Thinking About You. I didn't include EMF's Unbelievable as the band had a few more minor hits. Scorpions were a German band, and apparently this is the best-selling song by a German music act ever. Who knew? I certainly didn't. It was inspired by the band's visit to the Soviet Union in the late 80s. The band are still together and perform the song regularly. This song still feels familiar to this very day as it's regularly featured in commercials and movies. It was actually released the previous year but didn't make the top 40. But after a remix it got to #4 and became one of the biggest hits of '91. Zoe released 2 albums before becoming a potter and a sculptor, and apparently is still recording these days. More Than Words was an acoustic ballad from a band best known for their funk metal sound and was lifted from an album called Porno Graffiti. Sounds edgy. It got to #1 in America and 2 in the UK, but the band admitted to feeling resentful of the song in the 90s as they hadn't planned on becoming best known for a mellow love song. Despite a few lineup changes, Extreme went on to record 3 more albums and still perform around the world today. I have no memory of this song whatsoever, but apparently it was a really big hit. The rave scene was at its height in the early 90s, and this track ended up as the 9th bestseller of the year overall, reaching #3. The group Oceanic were from northwest England and seem to have pretty much disappeared since. The One and Only was written by Nick Kershaw and was the theme song from the feature film Buddy Song, in which Chesney Hawkes also played the title character. Hawk struggled to have another hit, but he still performs today, has released 5 albums, and sometimes appears on British reality shows. Other one-hit wonders from 91 that deserve a mention include Beverly Craven's Promise Me, Crystal Waters' Gypsy Woman, Heavy D's and the Boys' Now That We Found Love, and PM Dawn's Set Adrift on A Memory Bliss. The Cuban-American singer was discovered by Emilio Estefan, and his wife Gloria Estefan actually sang background vocals on this track. John went on to write hits for other artists such as Ricky Martin and Jennifer Lopez, but never really clocked up another hit of his own. So it actually turns out Dr. Alban was in fact a real-life doctor. Originally from Nigeria, he travelled to Sweden where he studied dentistry and did some DJing on the side to fund his studies. He had even started his own practice when he met Dennis Pop, the Swedish pop genius who discovered and mentored the behind-the-scenes king of pop, Max Martin. He did have another hit the following year with Sing Hallelujah, but as it wasn't a UK top 10 hit, he's going on this list. Dr. Alban is still writing and recording today and earning decent royalties from It's My Life, I would imagine. Tamsin Archer from Yorkshire signed with EMI in 1990, had this huge number 1 in 92 and a gold album the same year. She released her follow-up in 96, but both the album and its lead single failed to reach the top 40, after which she left the record label. Sleeping Satellite was written with her boyfriend John Hughes, who she still records with to this day, but mostly privately and under a different name. In 2021, she told The Guardian that she plans to release new material under her own name. KWS were a 3-piece dance act from Nottingham. They only released 1 album and then seemingly disappeared. The band was named after the band's surname initials, and Please Don't Go reached number 1 in the UK for 5 weeks and number 6 in the US. The band's keyboardist Chris King now works as a classic scooter renovator. Would I Lie to You was a global smash, but surprisingly only reached number 13 in the US. It was a huge number 1 in the UK and became the 3rd best-selling song of 92. The duo split on good terms in 97 after their 2nd album failed to chart. Eddie went on to become a photographer, but sadly Charles died from cancer in 2001, aged just 37. Other noticeable one-hit wonders from 92 include Shanice's I Love Your Smile, Criss Cross's Jump Jump, and Arrested Development's People Every Day. Urban Cookie Collective did have one more hit, Feels Like Heaven, but I have absolutely no recollection of it, so I'm putting them on this list. The band were a Eurodance act from England and were fronted by Diane Charlemagne. The Key the Secret reached number 2 in the UK and is still widely considered one of the biggest dance songs of the 90s. Rowan Heath, who wrote the song, later said it was actually about taking magic mushrooms. Diane Charlemagne sadly died in 2015 from kidney cancer, aged just 51. Four Non Blondes were a rock group from San Francisco, led of course by Linda Perry. They formed in 1989 but split in 94 after just one album, Bigger, Better, Faster, More. Linda Perry has of course went on to have huge hits as a songwriter, including Christina Aguilera's Beautiful, Pink's Get the Party Started, and Gwen Stefani's What You Waiting For, among many others. This reggae song by a Jamaican group Inner Circle was a huge hit, mostly in Europe. The band were actually first formed in 1968 and have gone through numerous lineup changes over the years. They did have another hit in America with their track Bad Boys, which was used in the Will Smith movie of the same name. Snow was a Canadian reggae rapper whose real name was Darren O'Brien. Informer went to number 1 all over the world, including the US. Apparently he wrote Informer while serving an 8-month jail sentence after being charged with 2 counts of attempted murder because he would not tell the police who the perpetrator was. Ultimately he was acquitted on both counts and went on to become an international rapper for a short while. Unfortunately he was unable to follow up this global smash with any other hits. As of 2022, he is still writing and recording. The Scottish band's cover of this Bananarama song was first released in 1984, but in 1993 the song was re-released after it was used for a Volkswagen Golf commercial, by which point the band had split up. The band did reform briefly for a few TV appearances at the time though. You might have been expecting to see Hadaway in his 1993 classic What Is Love on the list, but he did have a few more hits, as did Culture Beat, Other notable one-hit wonders from the year include Spin Doctor's Two Princes and Shabba Ranks' Mr. Loverman. Tony DeBart was a former bathroom salesman from Buckinghamshire who scored a one-week #1 in spring '94 with The Real Thing. He co-wrote the song and it was a remix which topped the charts. The Guardian included The Real Thing in their best #1 records list in 2012. His Wikipedia page states that Tony was a judge at his local village fete in 2013, which is nice. Big Mountain were a reggae band first formed in the 80s. They had a huge hit with this cover of the Peter Frampton song Baby I Love Your Way. It reached #2 in the UK and #6 in the US and was on the Reality Bites soundtrack. Big Mountain have also undergone many lineup changes, but Joaquin McWhinney has remained their lead vocalist since '88. In 2016, the band released their first album in 14 years, Perfect Summer. Apparently Stillskin were only put together because an English songwriter needed a band to front a song he'd written called Inside for a Levi's campaign. That song went to #1 in the UK, but no other hits followed. The band are still together, recording and touring despite numerous lineup changes. Dupe were a house dance duo made up of two blokes from the Netherlands. Dupe the song was a fusion of 90s house dance and 20s Charleston ragtime rhythms. The duo had another hit under the name Hocus Pocus with Here's Johnny, which was a #1 in Australia the previous year. Dupe was a big hit on the dance charts in America and a #1 in the UK. Not much has been heard from them since. I Swear was originally recorded by country singer John Michael Montgomery in '93. All for One didn't waste much time and covered the song the following year, which was produced by music legend David Foster. The track got stuck at #2 in the UK for 7 consecutive weeks, behind Wet Wet Wet's Love Is All Around, but it went to #1 elsewhere in the world, including Australia and the US. The band last released new music in 2015 and still do 90s concerts and festivals. Other honourable mentions from '94 include another song from the Reality Bites soundtrack, Lisa Loeb's Stay I Missed You, and Rednex's Cotton Eye Joe, and the Crash Test Dummies and that song where they hum the chorus. Whigfield had a huge #1 with Saturday Night the same year, but also scored 2 more hits, so if we're going to be all technical about it, she does not qualify as a one-hit wonder. The same applies to MC Sarr and the Real McCoy, who also had a huge hit in '94 with Another Night, and also had a few more hits the following year. And there you have it. Whilst these bands and solo acts have been saddled with the somewhat unfavourable title of one-hit wonder by people like myself, I'm sure most of you would agree that among this list are some really brilliant songs that have stood the test of time, and I feel kinda grateful these musicians and performers bestowed on us their pop magic, even if it was only for a very short time. Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts on anything in this video, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my other videos.